or the dielectric. So you could do the same thing with a human. I think we could just get 2 pieces of metal, one on the feet or the ground, and one on the head, and charge it up like this. But
absolutely,
high voltage. Yeah.
Right, like that's a good point, Charlie. Like, especially I go into a lot of speculation with like the different royal crowns being a type of technology, and that's the metals on the top. And that a lot of the ancient royals of different cultures, Egyptians, pharaohs, stuff like that, also were covered in gold all the way down. And you can see that they have these gold and silver threads in their sandals, their shoes, all sorts of stuff. That would be an even more amplified grounding and electrocharged situation that they would be in, essentially, with this technology, and that it would be like this bioelectricity, essentially, with the electroculture on humans. And then is that some of the Oriental Eastern energy medicine practices, are they essentially tapping into this bioelectrical fields and energies? And the fact that you bring up DC works better than AC. I'm not sure if you saw the stream last night with Philip and Cameron and Campbell on electroculture and orgonite and their coil stuff, but I brought up the speculation of, and then I lose my train of thought. Right? Like, oh my God, it was just on the tip of my tongue. I'm explaining the lead up to it, and then I completely forget the point. Oh, DC and AC, and is DC the natural, like, spiritual electrical bioenergy, and is AC a distortion of this energy that we're using, maybe a harmful or parasitic electricity out of the natural energy that is everything?
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, just thoughts, right? Like, these just random ideas, not necessarily stuck on them or...
Yeah, with the Leyden jar, you can't charge it with AC. You have to use DC.
I can see where that case could be made, but on the same token, like when we look at so many different energetic systems, there is typically an oscillation of power, where DC is one of the things that makes that so useful, is it doesn't have that oscillation of power. It just is one smooth, even flow. So you don't have that up and down, but that up and down is also a very natural thing in most energetic systems where you have that. So, I mean, I don't know if I would necessarily call it either or harmful. I would say you're probably going to get pretty vastly different results, and you would have to learn how to harness the best things out of each.
Yeah, we have a joke for electrical engineers. Let me see if I could switch this camera view. No, maybe not. Okay, I'll just turn it this way. We have a joke in electrical engineering about capacitors. It blocks DC like this, but it'll pass AC like this. Electro boom.
I guess it.
Joke too. But yeah, the reason it blocks, not because that's a good way to remember it. Capacitors, if you have an AC signal to it, it'll charge one plate positive, and then when the cycle goes negative, it'll discharge that plate. So it'll never, it'll act like a short for AC. But with DC, the capacitor has to first charge it up before it discharges. So with the like a Leyden jar, it's like a capacitor, and you can charge it with DC, and then you could short the two metal inside and outside metal pieces together, and it'll spark. But if you put AC, it won't build up a charge. It won't store energy.
Right, like, and that is nature's energy and static electricity and energy. They're all DC current, correct? And that AC, the alternating, isn't really a electricity or energy that we see too often in nature.
I guess so. You could maybe say like night and day is kind of like AC because it goes in and out, positive, negative. The Schumann resonance, which is like the Earth's frequency, is pretty AC.
Really?
Yeah, electric culture. Yeah. Who was
You see what I was saying though with that oscillation? That's all AC is that oscillation, and that is represented in so many things. So while I understand all the advantages to DC, I mean, like in my house, even before you store the power into the battery, you want the power to be DC because the DC power stores. But when I want it to have a heavy push and do a heavy load of work, I convert it into AC, that DC into AC, where it's going to do that heavier load of work.
And it's pretty easy to convert back to DC. You just use like a full bridge rectifier. I got some here. There's two of them. Yeah, there we go. And they just have 4 prongs. You have AC signal on 2 of the opposite, and then there's one side that has corner cut off, and then that'll convert it to DC. So on the symbols on it look like this. Let me see. So these are the AC corners, and then this one that's cut is positive, and this is negative. And so you just apply any AC signal to that, and you get DC out. It's just 4 diodes connected, called a full bridge rectifier.
That's awesome, man. And see, once again, Charlie C. doing real science, and I love it.
Yeah, this is, I don't know if you've seen this. Jeremiah Pop has been helping me with this. He's working on it. This was like something Alexei Chekhov had shown. Where if you charge these, it's like a capacitor too. When there's an outer surface that's aluminum, paper is dielectric, and then the bottom is also aluminum. But this is folded so that there's like 90-degree angles between these capacitors. And when you charge it, and then when you discharge it, it seems to create a repelling force on the ruler, which is just balancing here, And Jeremiah was able to replicate it, but I haven't been able to yet. So I'm not sure what
get there.
Yeah, he was using some sort of high voltage. I think Jeremiah was using copper, and he better insulated it. There's a few tricks he's been giving me to how I get there.
Nice.
We'll
Jeremiah
replicate it.
is awesome. So back to electric culture. Foz yesterday, I didn't see it. One of xirtus's good buddies and sent him the link. He might come on, but that there needs to be a discussion between electroculture and magniculture and the difference between that, right? So do you want to quickly discuss a little bit of that?
And can we Frankenstein them fuckers together is my question, because that's what I would be doing. Putting magnetic underneath the plant, putting electroculture above the plant, and taking into account the different metals, because the metal that I would be putting underneath the earth would be iron, because the root system draws oxygen, and that's your ferromagnetic metal. And so all this accounts. I would take, and so please go ahead.
Oh, so this guy's still going. This is the opposite, I guess, of electroculture. I'm getting energy from the plants. So this one's not doing so well. It's been watered, but maybe just the transplant or taking from it. Yeah.
Right. So this is inverted electroculture. You're now showing pulling electricity out of the plants, but then you're showing that it's actually degenerating the plant essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. So they haven't grown that much, and this one's kind of wilting, and that one's almost dead. Just been powering this little cat, which is normally powered by a solar cell, but I took that out and replaced it by copper and zinc to make it into a battery.
That's fascinating. Discovery, essentially, correlation that. So electroculture putting energy in accelerates the growth and helps the growth, but tapping and taking that electrical energy out is actually diminishing, harming, and destroying the plants. I'm pretty sure that's as good of inverse evidence as you can show that just the inverse effect of the electroculture.
Yeah, exactly. So something everyone else can try for themselves. I recommend something that grows pretty quickly, like wheatgrass. Do some tests with
So
that.
with what I was saying, then when you're doing your copper up top and your iron down below, you're still playing off of just basically the same thing that we use in any kind of a generator, anything like that. So I don't see why those two energies wouldn't want to, if not necessarily used at the same time, maybe used in an oscillation with each other, where like at night during your more rooting time, you would hit it with the magnetic energy. And then during the day, during the solar time, you would hit it with the more of an electroculture energy, giving it that oscillation of energy. Or if you would want to run them both at the same time. But like I said, again, accounting into the understanding that that's basically a generator, basically your heart. So you're trying to apply that same thing into the plant and trying to, on this plane where the plant actually appears, you're getting those two forces to come together and that this life to be able to absorb it.
Okay, for magniculture, I haven't heard of that. But do you just get like a magnet and put it near the plants? Is that, or do you need
The
like a
South
oscillating
Pole
magnetic field?
apparently charges better, correct, Ben? I heard you talking about that a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah. So you
before
want
I
the
joined.
south side of the magnet, yeah. But when you look at it, then the thing that everybody's been doing and that like Ken Wheeler shows is you put it on the south side of the magnet, like Bernie just said. Then the plant roots. He also did just recently an experiment, your typical, well, then I'll also do the side by side with the north. And the north ones, they produced more foliage and they didn't root. So then there's the next question with the magniculture is you want to give it that southern energy, but during the fruiting cycle of the plant, would you want to switch it to the other side? And I don't know. Lots of experiments to be had on that.
Okay. Yeah, and going back to like AC versus DC, if you maybe you rotate the magnet, you can get a oscillating magnetic field. So is there any research you know about that? Spinning magnetic fields?
Not that I know of, but that's a very good prediction. I'm sorry, I'll be right back in one moment too.
Yeah, like, or even spinning it day and night, where during the nighttime, we know that the plant naturally wants to root. And during the daytimes when it's, producing chlorophyll, vegetating, things like that, does the north side or does the north side of it, the actual North Pole, not the part that points north, but does the north side of the magnet create more vegetation, more foliage, and then the south side tend to have more of a rooting? So in that, would you want to, rather than doing a fast spin where you're getting both, would you want one during one part of the time during the day and one during the, opposite at night? So many things that nobody's put any science into whatsoever, that all these things can play into account. And then, like I said, if you're doing electroculture on top and you're doing the magniculture underneath, how are those two interplaying with each other in the middle where the plant lives?
And you could do electromagnetism too, to instead of having a solid state magnet like the coils they were talking about, Gerald, you could get a rotating magnetic field, and just pulse it even. So low frequencies, or adjust the frequency, amplitude. So there's a lot to search. Exactly. So do you think the Earth's magnetic field, so plants, do you think grow better in the southern hemisphere?
Boy, it sure seems like everything's jungles down there, don't it? A lot of jungle action going on down there, except for where they've, done some desertification that usually is because we're dumbasses. Like even on my mountain, you can see it where they cut roads and run electrical lines, and the water quits flowing past that spot, and all of a sudden there's a big dead spot. Like, oh, that's nice.
Where do you recommend we do some research? Where have you gotten the knowledge from? Electroculture, there are PDFs or books you recommend?
No, this was, a lot of people have been asking about it and researching it, and I'm just delving into it. So, I mean, I've done some study on it, but I'm by no means any kind of an expert. So I was just reading articles that I was pulling up, and well, then let's research it, because so many people are putting out YouTube videos where all they're doing is putting a coil and jamming it in the ground and blah blah blah. So I went through and started looking at and then the article even said that it was a new thing. So I started looking at some of the patents throughout history. I pulled up old patents, and you saw that a lot of these systems, it very much appears like they're playing off of the voltage differential in the atmosphere, between the atmosphere and the ground. And because these things, the ones that I was pulling up anyways, oh, you're such a pain in the ass. You guys can't see it, but there is a cat right in front of me trying to, when you're doing these things, you're trying to look at the person. I know it doesn't like now it looks like I'm looking, but I'm looking at him, and you are. Anyways, these things weren't like just something that was 6 inches or 2 or 3 feet. The ones that they were showing, like the one picture, they had a church with a steeple in the background, and this thing appeared to be, it's taller than the church steeple. And then the one picture was this electroculture building, and appeared to be a 2-story building, and the thing was a substantial amount taller than that. So it seems to me like they were pulling more off of the voltage differential from the atmosphere and building that up somehow and using that to direct it. So it was really more of putting more actual power into the soil than what a lot of these people that are making these videos and whatnot are doing.
Okay, well, patents are a good place to go to look for research. It's interesting. Have you heard of certain rocks that affect? Because I was doing research on this moss agate, and they said it was tradition that they would bury moss agate stones like this with plants so they help it root, because the structure of this kind of looks like a rooting structure.
Sure. And then what makes it hard? So the coloration is the mineral, and the whole reason that it's an agate is because it's been covered over with quartz, which is a very you've got, as our friend Jeffrey's been showing, the reverse piezoelectric and piezoelectric energy. Piezoelectric coming from when you put pressure on it, that's the degradation and breakdown in the energetic release of that degradation of the crystal, where the reverse piezoelectric causes it to have some real other interesting properties, where you're putting energy into the quartz and the quartz is feeding energy instead of releasing it. And so that's super interesting. You're going to have a lot of quartz in around that. Any energy you're putting in there, it's definitely going to be altering and at the very least rectifying. So annoying.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Have you heard of putting sensors on plants like EKG, electrocardiogram sensors, so that you could see pretty much what the plants are feeling or thinking or talking by
some of the patents did, yes. At least 2 of the patents did, and they had some fairly complicated machinery that was, one of them was picking up electrical signal and doing it, like with just a needle like that. And they had a few other machines that a couple of them patents that were trying to see what was going into the plant, which is, again, very, if you're trying to really be scientific about it. One of the people in the chat was talking about, how the grass around his fence dies. Well, he's running an electric fence that's meant to shock an animal and keep it away. Obviously, that's too much. At some points you're going to be killing pests. At some points you're going to be stimulating things. At some points you're going to be killing the biome of the soil. At some point you're going to be frying the plant. Like Lucas said, this is where other components come in, like where Lucas was talking about the sodium setting the electroconductivity of the whole system. And as you burn through it, it's going to burn those pieces out, and you're not even able to carry charge anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of like water. If you put room temperature water, it's good. If you put boiling water, it'll kill. So you got to be careful with electricity as well. With the right frequency and amplitude, you could give it some energy. If not, you could destroy it.
Exactly. And and what's DC going to do? What's AC going to do? They had both. The article I was looking up and then they had completely separate magnaculture, or whatever you would want to call it. So these are all completely separate ideas. And again, where I'm curious, because rather than thinking that one is, because I mean, I know it's very most people realize direct current, but we also find alternating current in nature. So I'm very curious what each one of those stimulates. And then once again, just like I was talking about with the combination of the electroculture and the magnetic side of things, well, then what if we also did a rotation of, like, what if a little bit of AC into the system every now and then, is helpful. It gives it a little woof, where then that's only something good for a very short duration, where most of the time DC is going to be more beneficial. Lots of questions, no answers.
Yep, experiments we could do. You could also apply it not just to the dirt, but to the water or the plants themselves. You can attach electrodes to them and leaves.
Right, and so the answers are out there, and there's been lots of different people doing different independent experiments on their own, and it's just so many experiments for all of us to do and start doing.
I was saying I don't have any of these answers.
Sharing it, and yeah, for sure, right? But with the agricultural and electroculture real science series that we're starting and doing, and essentially this is part of it, but that we'll be doing an official titled series of it going forward with our own experiments launching in the next couple of weeks. I myself are going to start doing one of lettuce, one of spinach, and one maybe of either carrot or a beet or something like that. And that I'm going to use the same seeds, same soil, same containers, same light, but then have one with the regular tap water as a control, one with the regular tap water then turned into colloidal silver or gold water from my monoatomics that I'll be watering, and then one with the diatomic blue oxidized water to see if that actually poisons the plants as opposed to helping it, or if it does help it, who knows. And that if I can repeat the 6-foot lettuce that I grew in my garden last year by watering it with the colloidal waters and giving it a little bit of actual pure monoatomic gold powder at the very start, and yeah, doing tests that way. And then I'm encouraging Mike over at Faraday Research to start doing one with his structured water versus just his tap water. With Gerald's already starting doing some of his experiments with his seeds and stuff, started it, and I encourage everyone to get involved with this sort of stuff. And whether it's the electroculture, and also in that, that was another one of the, not just 3, there's like 5 or 6 total that I wanted to do. I might also do microwaved water with one, but I don't know if I'll do that this year. I might wait till next season. And then one with the just basic wood stick with the solenoid copper wire going up, building that little electroculture antenna. And if I have enough energy and ability and I guess what's the word, inspiration, try to maybe also repeat Ken Wheeler's battery South Pole magnetic experiments as well. But I don't know, probably too many in the first go. Maybe you just keep it to.
Well, and I'm also very curious how the difference between how it affects a rooting thing, like you said, carrots.
Exactly why,
as
right?
opposed
There's
to
the
a,
lettuce,
as
the
opposed
spinach.
to a green.
You got it. You
Yeah.
got it. That's why I'm including.
And then also maybe something that is a fruiting, like a melon, you know, rather than
I'm in
a
Canada,
broccoli, be like a
so
melon.
how about you down in
Cannabis?
California? I can either ship you some monatomic material, or you can start making some yourself to start doing some of this. But we all should be doing these experiments and get them set up. But I don't have a greenhouse at my current setup right now, so melons pointless, just too short of a growing season here in the western prairies of Alberta. Ooh, we got Fozzie, the Tyler man joining. Welcome.
What's going on?
Good to
Yo.
meet you, Tyler.
How are you?
Yeah, we should try to get Matthew right too. Hopefully, he is a lot with electroculture. He mentioned he's working with some farmers.
Absolutely. Sorry, yeah. Duh, brain dead. Yes, that was.
I've been
another
meaning
one
to
that
call
I was
Matthew
going to
anyways.
include, is the rice charge structured water. That was the other one. Thank you for reminding me there, Charlie. And
My
yes,
phone with
absolutely.
Telegram
right
on
now.
it. He messages my phone with Telegram on it, and it won't take a charge. And I've been meaning to call him anyways.
So I guess I don't know where you guys are up to, because I've only just jumped in the stream without watching the video beforehand. It's just walking the dogs and all that. So yeah, what's the topic? What are we discussing currently?
No worries, Ty. We've been discussing electroculture, and I brought up magnaculture on your suggestion from yesterday, and I was literally just about to start going through the images that you had posted for yesterday's electroculture. So if you wouldn't mind sharing them or bringing up some of your points, good sir.
Well, you've caught me pretty off guard. I've actually just gotten back from walking the dogs. I haven't got my computer and all that.
No worries.
I had to screenshot them because it was a Scrib-D document, and you need the paid subscription for it.
Right.
Or you get a certain amount every month or whatever. So I was able to screenshot them to get around not being able to save them. But
Beautiful.
I've got the link.
I suggest everybody does that. And sorry to interrupt. No. Luckily, you sent them to me, so I have them. So do you mind if I ask you some of the questions or just basics about what you've sent here?
Well, yeah. Like what I was bringing up specifically with that distinction, because I know they're sort of being used a little bit, they're sort of being used interchangeably a bit. Everyone sort of either calls it electroculture or magnaculture, or I've even, people are calling it electroculture, which could possibly be the distinction again, where that's sort of talking about more using actual like current through the plant more than it being a field thing.
Yes. Okay. I'm glad you bring that up as well, because shout out once again, Sherry Ives, who sent me this amazing electroculture book, and it's from the Lehman James Briggs Forgotten Books, and you can actually download it as a PDF online. But it's got a bunch of different electroculture experiments from the U.S. Agriculture Department in the 1920s and 30s. And one of the main tests that they put focus onto was where they were putting a whole bunch of AC currents and direct current voltage into it, and that it was creating negative effects on it. So that's why they finally ruled it as a bunk technology that harmed it and didn't work, and didn't continue investigating it further after that.
There was a big push between the First and Second World War by Britain in particular, and they invested a lot into studying it, at being at risk of food shortage and all that. But it being sort of you know, between the military campaigns and just, you know, England, you got to assume that they just swept that up. They found their results and just swept it under the rug and put the pseudoscience title on it. You know, and that's where it disappeared from what it seems.
As they do with every over unity, free energy, or national security, technology, or science throughout.
There was what made me really pay attention to the language of it was that I kept when people are running sort of the indoor sort of tests for it all, or not tests, but when people are doing the instructional videos, half of them are using a magnet to create that, like they're using a magnet, a copper wire, and a galvanized nail, and that's creating the field sort of thing. But then
so electromagnetic as opposed to a natural stable.
Or as opposed to the other videos, they use a 9-volt battery. You know what I mean? And so that's, in theory, I think they're what, DC, aren't they? A battery, yeah, that's direct current.
Yes, sir. So DC versus AC in them, which is actually good to see the different ones, and that hopefully everybody that tries each different way, the key part is to make sure you have a control that you're also growing along with the one that you're doing this experiment with, and recording the whole process along the way so it can be usable science and like results, and eventually, you know, we're turning this into something.
We need to aim for that 30%. You know, that's the sort of benchmark that I saw repeated from the French studies in the late 1700s, with, you know, with all the timing.
AFCE, the French Association of Electric Cultivation. Have you heard of them? Or was that from ChatGPT and they gave me a list?
Right. Well, that might have been the organization that did it, but it coincided with the possibility of them, you know, maybe using that in the early incubators and all that shit, because it disappeared sort of right, you know, I think it was about 1830 or 1840 was when it kind of just, or even earlier, sorry, it was late 1700s that it fully disappeared. Then we had all the 1800s stuff go down, and
that's a really good point. And that earlier at the start of this stream, Ben, you mentioned how you didn't believe Benjamin Franklin was the discoverer of electricity with the kite going up to the lightning bolt. And 100%, there's all these 1600s and older German and French science books that literally have chapters with these depictions of both the cathedrals and just going up and collecting the different levels of electrical differential from the atmosphere to the ground, and the architecture in between the two, and that they were studying the science of it, writing chapters of this 400 or 500 years ago, and it's been completely erased. And when you understand that, and then how advanced electroculture really can be, and such things as like the megaliths, the pyramids, the different ancient macro architecture, that chances are it's a lot more developed, but that there's a much bigger understanding that's being hidden from us, but still in a portion of our society and technology today.
Anecdotally, China's still using electroculture or magnet culture pretty heavily. You know, it's a huge part of feeding their population there. So I haven't got any more info or any references to that statement, but I have heard that they're the ones that sort of kept going when the West gave it up after the war or whatever.
Yeah, the picture is depicting Benjamin Franklin, you know, with the kite, but actually he never did that experiment. He had another group of researchers he had mentioned too, and they performed the experiment for him, but they did it with a lightning rod and a Leyden jar. Yeah, so that's what we taught in electrical engineering, but still culturally explained that he did it himself. But Charles Steinmetz, though, actually did some interesting lightning experiments before Benjamin, around that time. And he was known as like the capturing lightning.
We're taught And I have to just point out, and then I'll let you go on with this, Charlie, because please explain this more. That's huge. But that they make the first experience of collecting electricity from the air, a traumatic one of, oh, we got shot by lightning with the kite. Like, don't ever put anything up there. Where then it's like, oh, you're never going to look at, oh, this technology that is literally collecting that and the science of that is built into everything that's hidden right in front of us.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, he never did the experiment, so I don't think he was at any risk. But others have tried to replicate it based on the first group that did it based on his request, and a lot of people died trying to replicate it. But before that, there was people in China, like you mentioned, that were doing it, and even monks that would do it on purpose, do like a kite or balloon technique, a lantern with fire to create the buoyancy for lift, and then lightning would strike it, and they would attract it into their body, and it was called Lei Shendao, which is a method of attracting lightning into the body and storing it. Yeah, so I was told this by a master that learned from his 3 masters, and he said, "Don't attempt it because you'll die if you try to do this." But there was a method to do it, and the monks that were able to master it were really powerful, and they could do things like predict the future based on the energy they got from the lightning flash.
Wow. And so for those that don't know, Charlie has a history of, you went over to China, was it? Or Tibet, China? And you studied under Oriental Eastern alchemists and like full in like with actual masters. Like,
wow. I wouldn't have even pictured such a thing existed. Oriental alchemist masters. That's crazy.
Yeah, I think it originated in India, with Buddhism, and then moved to China, and then they really made it really practical. But this is thousands of years ago, so they really mastered it. And they recently opened, transportation between the U.S. and China, so I was able to find some masters there. They're able to teach foreigners. It's a big deal to teach foreigners because most of them believed that they shouldn't. So a lot of groups didn't. But I found a group and a translator that could translate Chinese to English because they didn't speak English and I didn't speak Chinese, so it worked out eventually. Yeah, I was able to learn from them, but it took a while.
Yeah.
Some cool technique.
I don't know why she's in Ohio.
So Charlie, did you ever witness them like actually get struck by lightning, or you at least saw them like trying to go out and do this, or just stories that were taught to you of their practices?
That was just a story I was told from their masters, but not to attempt it. There were some people that tried to learn it, but they were told not to learn it. but some people insisted on it. There were a few people that wrote about it. David Verdessi was one. And besides that, the chi that they produce is very electrostatic like thunder, and they might be like the Vajra you might have heard, which is both electric and like a diamond, or it's the ultimate attack and defense. And that's kind of like the Vajra hand, and the symbol of the Vajra is like the Buddhist symbol, where there's a center handle, and then at the end are 4 or 3 pieces. Yeah, so that was like a tool or a metaphor.
Right? You just go out looking like Mr. T, just like hang yourself.
Oh my goodness. Does lightning activate that thing? Is that like a lightning activating fucking device?
I think mostly what they use is like a kite.
Someone to gonna go either get struck by lightning or hold the power of Thor.
Isn't there people that can put their finger, like, you see those crazy videos of people like putting their finger in a socket and like, like getting a light globe to light up, or I've even seen someone like arcing to paper and getting the paper to light on fire. I don't know how.
Yeah, the group I learned from, they develop it in their body and they call it chi, but they don't use electricity from the walls. I built a device that does, that can produce the similar effect, but it's not similar to chi that they use. So I was trying to study the differences between the electricity that they call chi and real electricity, because I'm an electrical engineer researching this. So that was one interest in me, but I could never measure chi accurately. I tried oscilloscopes and thermal cameras and a few different methods.
Have you ever tried the cobalt glass lenses or something through like the UV spectrum? Supposedly that helps in visualizing the orgon or etherical. We got to bring Michael Boyd back on for this as well.
Because I think if we're sort of connecting lightning to chi or any conductivity of human energy with that lightning suggesting that it's photon, right? Or it's not.
Yeah,
Chi suggesting more of like maybe ether or something. All right.
Yeah, they told me lightning is closer to chi than electricity is. So they were able to convert lightning into chi, but you can't convert electricity really into chi. I know Bruce Lee was trying to do that because he learned from one of the Qigong masters, and he was trying to get AC and hold on to AC like from the power from an outlet. And they thought that would charge their body with the chi instead of doing the years of practice that normally required.
Fascinating you bring that up, and it brings me back to that first idea of AC or DC being the natural, AC being like this like harmful-ish electricity, parasitic electricity, and that like that DC static, and once again those full golden robes and their crowns and all of that, and then walking on that red carpet collecting it all. Could they channel and collect that energy? And then does that activate their crowns? Like you see in Egypt, they have their crown on and then that big red glowing portal thingy, ball lightning plasma on top, or their halo. Like,
yeah, there might be something to the crown because trees kind of do that. Like pine trees, you'd see they really sharp, pointy tips, and they can grow real tall, and that kind of acts like a lightning rod. Well, it'll discharge any charge that builds up on the ground, so it won't get struck by lightning. That's why we build the lightning rod, sharp rods to discharge the energy, so there's no buildup for lightning strikes. So maybe a crown does something like that. I don't know.
Right, and grounding. There has to be more purpose of them putting such wealth and resources of gold and gemstones and everything into these the old ancient crowns and the ancient suits just even a few hundred years ago, but that you see like African or Asian or even the Europeans, but then always the popes and the different priests and whatnot.
Remember video games where
the Orthodox Christians and the Catholics, they're dressed up in their giant freaking elongated crowns and the golden silver robes and like threads and whatnot, and still you see them go like gotta be something to it. And their staff
with you're talking about like sort of the change to AC being sort of a bit more of a harmful thing. I think I was looking up the language of it all, and a lot of the coincidentally like hertz, killer, watts, there's a few of these like it's sort of almost got damage, it's like in the wording, and a lot of them come from I think it's 1920 or 30. I think a lot of them are German, from German people, like watts.
Oh, named after Hertz. Yeah,
Hertz and killer. I always thought as that's pretty. That came in at the same time sort of AC was coming out, right? And that's where they fried the elephant. So it's sort of like what you're saying. They were really adding the connotation of like the suggestion of death or injury to this energy. But I noticed it's because it isn't grounded or whatever. It's like what you're saying. It's we've got the Earth's sort of closed circuit or whatever, which is in harmony with Ohm's law. But with AC, you have to go Ohm's law, Watt's law. Then you get your efficiency. But I don't think the AC it's not in harmony with Ohm's law. Because it's not a closed circuit, it's not grounded, it's not the Trinity like we see in everything, like fractally in everything. It hasn't got that order.
Well, I mean, it is grounded when you put it in a Trinity, though. Right?
But it doesn't have
when you go three-phase, that's when you don't need to have the neutral. That's when everything's balanced.
So the theory is, if we just like the Earth, we're adding the Earth into a wire where we could just use the Earth. you know, like the actual ground. Whereas we add that into a wire with the AC. But I could be really wrong with this. So I'm not. Still.
I'm not saying that you're wrong, but I'm saying that like where the problem comes in with a lot of these things is there's no amperage. Like we've all seen the earth batteries and things like that.
What
And
what you just said was one of the most brilliant things ever, and then what you just said is also takes that brilliance to the whole nother level with the Trinity, because these are both like biblical things you're talking about, and then also the actually explaining how we can connect this in Tictoc and explain how it works and connect it into our modern day electrical system.
Yep.
We just now have to figure out, like you said, how to step up that amperage. And is it from the antenna going up and then some sort of third phase connecting it with like the vacuum tubes or whatever, and then the antenna array bringing in the radiant heat energy in, I believe, is actually the key to it.
And Nicholas Tesla was doing experiments with AC, high voltage, low current, and he passed it through, he said, in the stratosphere, and it was creating aurora borealis-like effects and near the Colorado Springs laboratory, and horses with horseshoes, because they had metal, shoes on their feet, would kind of get shocked by the electricity because he would ground it.
Yep.
And the horses would jump and freak out miles away from his experiments. So he used both the ground and in the stratosphere. He said he pass it. That's why his goal was to pass it over the ocean before even wireless communication was done. He wanted to pass energy through the air.
Nice.
And I think I could be wrong because I've done the research into the sort of the music aspect of the 432 to 440 hertz, whatever it was. But I think that might be linked. It's maybe around 1940. Someone could correct me on that, but when they actually changed that over. But
it's also at the same time they changed that daylight savings time, which indeed is the exact opposite. It fucks over farmers, which they claim it's for, but really that they say it upsets the whole routine of the animals and really fucks with your animals more than even the farmers. But as every person, it's like if you're in a working cycle, the time change, it's so stupid and unnatural and fucked up. And that's the exact same time they changed that 432, the natural frequency, or one of these solfeggios, to that 440. And also around that same time period, essentially wiping out the entire old electrical grid through those wars, the DC generating power system of old, and then now re-putting in this AC parasitic electricity system.
And now even further, if you listen to Eric Dollard, a step even further, where before they had everything set up in more of a 3-phase with a Y, so that way it's balanced. In all these bigger areas, they pulled that, and now it's not like that. It's an unbalanced system now too. So without an extreme neutral setup, you are having such feedback.
So is it forever trying to ground with the earth? Is it forever trying? Yeah.
Can we swing back to Ohm's law?
Yeah.
Ohm, that natural ohm, it's a full thing, and that's how just the law of electricity and how you brought that up. Please repeat what you said about Ohm's law and what you're saying there, Tyler.
All right. Well, I don't know. Like I haven't really gone into it too much, but it was just something I was kind of just more fleshing out the idea where, like, I was trying to just make sense of all the different energy forms and sort of like what state they were in, and AC, like it seemed like they went over to AC, and like in order to do that because DC, as far as I know, is grounded to the earth, right? So it's already it's within the closed circuit of the earth, right?
Batteries are DC, and they don't have to be grounded to the earth.
True.
But Ohm's law was named after George Simon Ohm. A lot of these terms are named after people. not necessarily Om.
You have
Like
to be a bit careful with a lot of these, because I know a lot of they kind of put the newer like definitions or origins on them when, you know, we meditate with Om. I'm sure it goes back further than, you know.
Om, yeah. And
Yeah.
Heinrich Hertz, it was named after Hertz, is a German physicist who did that.
I think it's, I can't, is it omega or Om, that the symbol in Greek or whatever? It's the
Omega, yeah.
Omega,
Yeah.
as well as Om, I think. I could be wrong though. But yeah, but what it seemed like was that in order to like close the AC circuit and, you know, monetize it or whatever, it almost seems like they use it's all wired up so it doesn't ground to the earth. And the issue is that I think it's a lot to do with whether it's like wave or ray. Like no, sorry, it's the direction of the flow. So that changed, that reversed when they went to AC as well. But yeah, I'll have to. It's another thing. I haven't got the booklet that I was reading on that. That's with my electroculture one.
This is mostly the symbol done with Om, and then this is Omega, Greek. This is, I think, Indian.
The first one, the girlfriend was demanding me on the phone.
The first one is Om as well, right? I'm pretty sure it.
Yeah, Omega, normally it's Greek, and then Om is more like an Indian origin.
So the energy through those symbols, some of these sacred geometries, and that, is it can't be defeated? Someone in the community, or maybe Space Case, one of the, Adam, went over the Indian sacred sigils. I forget what they're specifically called, but that there's ones that were, or was it you, Charlie, that also brought this up? That they emit radiation, the ones that are like made of gold, silver, and like a few other things, that like they're actually emitting energy radiation out of them. It's been measured small amounts. No? Okay, I will find out who it was, get the source for it, and it's absolutely fascinating. But please continue.
Yeah, I'm a bit lost where I was, to be honest, but
it's epic. It's just spitballing, right? Just throwing different ideas, and it's alchemy, right? Just connecting it all. And Charlie, do you want to maybe continue with some more of your epic experiences while experiencing the Oriental alchemy of the East?
Give time to look at John Chang trailer, but there was Lawrence Blair, which was doing a documentary. He was trying to find Darwin's dodo bird. I think it was a finch, a certain finch that grew, the beak grew, and that's what inspired Darwin to do evolution. Right, wrote his book on that. And so he wanted to travel there, and this is along like in the 70s or 80s, and they had difficulty getting there because it was a far remote region, and he had to take a big journey. And his brother was doing filming, and they ended up making it into a documentary. But on their way, they found a lot of interesting things, and one was a medicine, a healer. He's a qigong, and called John Chang, and he's passed away now. But during the time, they learned all sort of things from him, and that was the first time anyone caught it and then shared on video some of the effects of it. So he was able to light newspaper on fire, and create electricity that would shock, and use that with acupuncture needles. And he taught a few Westerners, but then his master got angry that he was teaching Westerners, and he cut off all Westerners. But for a little while, there was a few. Costa Gavrinas was one. He's still alive. Wrote a few books on his experience with him. And Jim McMillan, who I learned from, visited John Chang. I was able to find him in Java. It's an island. And learned from him for a while. But he ended up, Jim McMillan ended up developing prostate cancer, probably due to the meditation techniques and storing the energy in the lower dantian, which is maybe dangerous if you don't have a master. and it was difficult for him to visit his master, so it ended up hurting himself, and he died of prostate cancer. But before that, I was able to learn some of the techniques from him because he believed Westerners should learn about it, even though he was forbidden to kind of teach it. And so yeah, I learned the techniques I could show later in like presentation what he taught. So everyone offset might be able to learn from it, but again, it's dangerous to do on your own, so be careful.
Yes, please. We will have to do a future full Adept Alchemy 101. That's another series we are doing, and full episodes on that, because that is going to be a series all its own within the series. And it's fascinating because it's hidden in plain sight and like soft disclosure through media and like the television series, like The Witcher, and your story with the collecting the lightning, right? And if for those that've seen the Netflix series The Witcher, there's like the one witch, and when she's going through her training, they're all collecting that lightning in the bottle and stuff, and it's like fascinating. Like these are actual occult real practices. Also, there's like the last Airbender series, and I wonder how much out of that and the elementals and whatnot, and so many different.
Dude, that's the only show that I let my grandsons watch, and they're here. My grandson spent like the last couple of years. My daughter had some problems, so they spent almost a year here. You know, out of like 2.5 years, they spent like almost a year here, and I outside of like YouTube videos, I'd look up and let them watch the Airbender series. We bought that so they could play it on the DVD, and yeah, that's good stuff.
Nice, brother.
Yeah, I recommend it. Yeah, the creator and the director of the Airbender, the last Airbender, was I think a Buddhist and Taoist, and he was able to take a lot of techniques he learned and actually put them in there. So they're real teachings in there about Lao Tzu and Tao Te Ching. All sorts.
Oh, absolutely. And like if the like animated series, right? Like it goes so much more into it. And the first thing I noticed was every single episode, there's a full moral story being taught through it, right? Like this humble moral story. And then also like you're getting all of these different occult, mythical, real knowledge lessons throughout it all.
Yep, exactly.
So on the next episode of Odin's Alchemy, it will be BurnEye drinking banana onion juice. You didn't see that episode where he's
eggplant. I can handle banana, but not the eggplant.
I logged in with my computer just to put a link, and that's the link for the Ring of Fire. There's a clip that someone took out and edited to share just the Zhongcheng segment of it. But the Ring of Fire was several series of his travels through Indonesia and Java, the islands of Java, and he went like on pirate ships, and it's a pretty interesting story. And Lawrence Blair lived through it and survived it, and he built a house there in Java, and that story is interesting too because the neighbors there were helping build a house, and the whole community got together and built him a island paradise. But yeah, Zhongcheng, when he went there, he had an infection in his eye and was looking for a healer, and they said, yeah, you should see this Qigong master. And yeah, this is the story. So this little clip will show him. The footage is pretty old, but still good enough if you could get the idea. And a lot of people visited him, verified it's real, but the video that they got is pretty amazing, showing real Qigong. And then there's masters in China that do the same thing. So I learned from Dr. Zhang Fang in China. And they're near the Yellow Mountain in China, where a lot of the Taoists and monks came from.
That's so epic, Charlie. All right, let's watch this.
Super cool, man.
I know.
Really, and I think I watched this video. Didn't you send me this video the last time we met, Charlie? I believe
I
watched
this last time. Yeah, it's epic, and I'd seen it once before, like 15 years ago. I think probably like right around like the first few years of like the real YouTube surfing, and like it just always resonated with me as like real and stuck with me when I saw this.
Yep, that's the real alchemy.
It was in the big city where Java confronts the 20th century that we got a real shock.
Sound is good.
Lorne was suffering from a bad eye infection at the time. A cameraman's cause for panic. Lawrence had heard of a man who might be able to help and dragged me to him despite my reservations.
Is it in? You just relax and enjoy, Lord.
He uses acupuncture needles in the traditional points, but with a twist. Through them, he directs a form of electricity, as he calls it. But he doesn't draw the electricity from a wall socket. He claims to generate it within his own body. It was nothing like any acupuncture I'd ever had. I was getting really powerful electric shocks and couldn't control my movements at all.
Yeah, Dynamo Jack is another name.
He says that what he does is no more supernatural than an electric eel, which also knows how to harness its yin and yang energies.
Yin yang, positive and negative, you know. And my positive from here and my negative from here. And we meet together, this can get like electricity.
And is this because you're special? You have a special sort of body?
Meditation every day.
It's meditation that does it.
Meditation every day. Like a yoga.
Like a yoga. Yeah.
But I study about 18 years.
18 years.
18 years from my child people.
Can you project this energy through your hands only or through other things as well?
Like you can touch me like this. It's nothing, okay? It's my burn. It's like this.
A very
Our
powerful
sound
rock.
recordist, Simi, was skeptical at first.
So she's touching into the lower dantian, which is like the power source where it stores the energy. So that's where it'd be most powerful. She was just a sound recorder, but later they invite scientists over to study them. And they try to measure it with the voltmeter and oscilloscopes, but they can't measure it because it's momentary and it's very like high voltage when just for a lot of the equipment. So I tried similar methods, but no success. I did catch it on a thermal camera though, but I haven't tried, like you mentioned, the different types of filters you might be able to use.
Later, he told us that anybody could learn this. God had given us all the yin-yang polarity, but it takes discipline and meditation to awaken and control it. And you must be very aware of your emotions. This energy can be dangerous. It can kill as well as heal. Then he asked for our newspaper. Whatever he had done to our newspaper, it's how he had healed my eyes that made me wonder. What do these people living in the shadows of the volcanoes still know that we of the West have forgotten?
See how he's almost vibrating, like vibrating something there? Like he's getting the particles to speed up.
Oscillating it.
I first met him in the early 80s in a Chinatown of urban Java. He didn't want his real name or address revealed, so we called him DJ for Dynamo Jack. He was only a healer, he said, but he did direct a powerful energy generated from his own body into his patients. Sometimes he used the needles, sometimes just his hands. He called the energy Qi, and it was so strong that he usually needed a grounder to hold his patient's feet. For years, we followed him around Java on his healing rounds, pleading to be allowed to film him, but he always refused, saying his powers resulted from a type of meditation with an ancient tradition of secrecy. It was only when my brother Lorne was suffering from a serious eye infection that he finally allowed us to film him in 1987.
It was nothing like any acupuncture I'd ever had. I was getting really powerful electric shocks and couldn't control my movements at all.
Yin yang, positive and negative, and my positive from here and my negative from here, and we meet together, this can get like electricity.
And is this because you're special? You have a special sort of
meditation every day.
It's meditation.
Meditation every day. Like you can touch me like this. It's nothing, okay? It's my burn. Just like this.
For our sound recordist, it was also a shocker. He then took our newspaper outside and showed us how qi can also be used to set things on fire. When he heard we'd shown this footage in public, he was very upset and refused all our future efforts to contact him again. As the years passed, we sadly resigned ourselves to never seeing him again. My brother Lorne never did, for by 1997 he was already dead, when I again found myself with DJ, now treating me for an eye problem. But it wasn't this that brought me back. He had tracked me down out of the blue and invited me to tell me a story. He had just returned from 2 years on a deep meditational journey, alone in the heart of Borneo. Amongst his revelations, he had seen, he said, how history was moving on into great change, and the old wisdom was vanishing. So he'd called me back to film just enough of him to remind us that we all have undreamed of powers sleeping within us, and that there's nothing special about him except for his training in waking them. Grounding this patient, my cameraman Joe is having to use all his weight to keep contact.
So I just have to pause this once again to state, like, this is so fucking epic. And like the first time I watched this, it's like, it just stays with you for life. Like that there is this hidden super world that still exists within the East. And it is what we have completely lost in the West with our disconnect of consciousness and spirituality and our ancestry and all of that. And you know, it's with the powers within everybody, whether it's, it starts with meditation, self-stillness, and self-honesty, dropping the ego and any self-dissonance or cognitive dissonance, and being honest with yourself and the universe. And then dedication, practice, repeat, and learning from the masters of old.
Qi is pushing him away. He seems able to control the amplitude of this qi, like a dimmer switch, and it causes uncontrollable responses in the patients and their grounders.
I can barely keep my hand on you. It wants to fly off. The electricity is so strong.
This mother unwittingly grounds her child. He won't sit still, so she's asked to hold him and grin and bear it. Sometimes signs of this passing energy can be seen in the transmitter too. This qi stuff is only the surface, he says, of the real adventure beneath. in the meditational technique. Projecting qi from the palm of the hand can also be used to resist rifle pellets, he says. First, you learn to distinguish between yin and yang qi in your body. Then how to pool it in your navel chakra. Then how to project it, he says. And it's the proportionate mixture between yin and yang which accounts for different effects, like pulling or pushing objects or igniting them. Then he gets really strange. He says that mastering yin qi is the key to the spirit world. There's a long tradition of Indonesian krisis being possessed by spirits. So people bring him their krisis to see if they're duds. Here, he says, he doesn't manipulate matter by projecting mixtures of yin and yang qi. He merely creates a field of yin energy in which, he says, if there's a spirit, it can manifest itself. So I invited a small group of scientists back from the United States with measuring equipment to test if DJ was for real. And if so, where might this energy belong on the electromagnetic spectrum? Catherine Cook, CEO of the Mind Science Foundation in Texas. Dr. Roger Nilsson, a Swedish medic and international racing sailor. Dr. Greg Simpson, a physicist from New York's Albert Einstein University, and Andreas Polak, one of DJ's Australian students. The visitors are confident they'll uncover him as a fraud in no time. Greg is the first guinea pig, and he's uncomfortable about showing that he can feel anything at all. Dr. Roger doesn't know what to expect. Out comes the metal detector, like the things they use in airports, to see if he has any concealed metal in his body. Then the voltmeter, to try and measure the qi. But how to get it to work? Where's the ground? What settings? DJ suggests that as his negative is his perineum, and his positive is his navel chakra, perhaps that's where the electrode should be attached. He doesn't stand on his dignity. He's eager to help, but still no readings. They're getting shocks off his arm, and now they're on the right settings, but the needle still isn't moving. DJ says it isn't electricity, it's qi.
It's 1, 2, up. I feel it in my whole body. I feel it at 3, 0.3. I feel it in my legs. Shit.
But suspecting there's some tricky setup on his premises they can't find, they insist we all go to a randomly chosen hotel room several miles away to see if he can light a light bulb with his fingers. It doesn't ground on the wall. So Greg holds and grounds one wire, while DJ pumps qi through the other. The bulbs are LEDs, light-emitting diodes, which ignite in different colors according to the intensity of current.
Yes. On, off, on.
Brilliant.
Oh, you're blinking.
Things were going well. DJ was enjoying it too, until he invited us all out to lunch at his local, where he tried to push a chopstick through the table. He couldn't get it through the formica surface, so he came up through an inch of wood from underneath. Not only did he draw his own blood, but a chopstick splinter had caught Alison here between the eyes, drawing more. The incident was laughed off apologetically, but next morning he was a different man, drawn and upset. He said he'd been visited all night by his long-dead master, raging that he'd broken the strict taboos of his sect, never to show off in public and never to cause harm or draw blood. He felt deeply chastised. All further
I have to pause it there just to be like, what are the odds that it splintered and hit her right in between the eyes, like right in that middle spot? And, you know, like and connecting the ancestors, the spirituality, like to the spiritual realm, and that this does exist in the Western world, in some groups of what's called like the New Age, but also in the occult, in the esoteric, the secret societies, and then the spiritual groups and the truly spiritual groups, as well as the self-initiates to meditation, to astral projection, to remote viewing, as well as those that are experiencers of these higher realms and, you know, the entities and whatnot. And it's possible for anybody. Oh, as well as, sorry, lastly, the sleep... Wow. Always forget it live. You always get those one things that you can never... my girlfriend does it every night. The type of sleeping that you control everything, remember everything.
Lucid dreaming?
Lucid dreaming, there we go. Yes, all of those different experiences of this essentially quantum consciousness, quantum reality experience, out-of-body experiences, and higher dimensional existence experience, universal reality. And for those that haven't yet experienced such an experience themselves personally, there can be an extreme cognitive dissonance and rejection of this other existence. Often will be a once again, forget the words, but won't go that way. Just non-religious, non-spiritual, non-in-touch, being completely materialistic sort of existence in life, or that their only access or experience through it being psychedelics, but you get an extorted experience through drugs, and often they either can't handle it or get addicted to the experience of it without ever working on themselves or the self-mastery that requires to become in peace, in harmony with yourself and the universe, and be able to access the higher levels of meditation and consciousness and spiritual existence, and understanding the eternalness and immortality of the physical's energy being of your spirit or soul or consciousness or being, whatever, however you want to word it, or rationalize your existence to yourself. But that once you experience yourself outside of your physical brain and eyes in the existing universe and interacting with it, from that point forward, you forever have existed or experienced conscious life on a higher realm, and thus knowing of its existence, you then move into a different reality. But that at the same time, being human, at any point we can let our emotions or our ego take control and drop us back down into that lower conscious existence of fear or anger, where you then go into the 2D flight or fight, willing to do anything for instant survival, including taking out someone else's existence without thinking of any sort of consequences, even to your future existence or life, or yet alone that of anyone else's. And that the third, that's 2D conscious, like brainwave activity. The third dimensional existence, why we're in this 3D plane, is our free will and that you decide whether you're going to do something that either harms or benefits yourself and the life, the world, the existence, or whether you're going to sacrifice your free will and let yourself be a slave to the system, or sell your soul to the devil, metaphorically, by doing anything, getting addicted to those synthetic drugs, especially, where you then lose yourself, your moral being, and you're starting to commit these harmful parasitic actions to do anything to feed that conscious experience in one of these other realm sort of existences. And that is my spiritual alchemy ramble of the day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. A lot of it goes into different fields. Yeah, it's a deep rabbit hole to go into, but like I mentioned,
make of that whatever you want. Like, I can't prove any of that, and like, you know, something might happen that then makes my experience change, and maybe not believe that in the future, but who knows? Like, that's what we got out of.
Yeah, if you want to learn these practices and do them every day, you start developing more yin and yang qi. And yin qi is kind of like you mentioned, access to the spirit world, and you can start seeing entities that most people can't. And some people don't like that. So when there was an older woman that was seeing ghosts and it frightened her, so John Chang told Jim McMillan to just put his hand over her head on top of her head, the crown, and that will allow Jim McMillan's yang qi, which because he was doing qigong practice, to go into her, and then prevent her from seeing the ghosts because she had too much yin qi.
Damn.
Yeah,
right? It happens everywhere. It literally, like,
John Chang built like a tunnel in his backyard, and I would go there to meditate and to communicate with his dead master, and get information from him and predictive things, and it kind of guide him what to do. So, and a lot of rituals in Java that do that. The Chris they mentioned is made from meteorite metal, and there's a process when they're forging it. They go into like a trance, and then they bite it while it's red hot, and it doesn't hurt them, but they'll show like the teeth marks in the Chris. And,
just like the hot coal or hot ember walkings and stuff like that, right? And
right. That's what I do.
All these rites of passage of we call them tribalistic, but really they're the most spiritually in tune humanistic existence with nature, and that there seems to always be a period of these hunter gatherer tribe living off of one side, and then us, or this other material, a highly technological material existence on the opposite side of things. But that even today we still have these tribal communities and indigenous peoples living on the same realm as where we are, with that they probably possess a higher spiritual, like, conscious connection to existence than what we're able to experience in our own daily lives in the Western, even just modern worlds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what they mentioned here is like a physical enlightenment, where you can get this energy and still maybe use it for bad purposes, for good purposes. But that mental enlightenment is something different. But the school just taught physical enlightenment. And originally, John Chang was even using it to fight, and he won a lot of fights using this energy. And there was at one point a lion at a zoo kind of frightened him, and he killed the lion accidentally. So you got to be real careful. That's why he mentions with your emotions, don't let your emotions get in control, because then she will react and defensively.
Right, like, oh man, okay, we gotta finish this. It's so epic, and like, this is a very rare glimpse into the secret, like, society of the East. So what is known and what exists to what level of the secret societies of the West on you know, both a good and bad level, essentially, or potentially.
Like you look at the legends of the Ulfundar and the Berserkers, where they went without any kind of armor into battle and were unstoppable. You understand that they achieved some state before they went into that allowed this to happen. Like this wasn't just nothing. that there was understood spiritual states for the Northern Europeans and the rest also that we don't, for whatever reason, in our society, they will look at the Egyptians, they'll look at the Hindus, which is no knock on any of them. They're all beautiful. But for whatever reason, the Northern Europeans and the things that they did, that just gets completely left out. And that's like for myself, that's my root. And from my perspective, that's where I'm going to get the most easy access because that's what my ancestry is tied to. So those things are in every culture.
Yeah, there's a book from Costa de Venus, the Mangus of Java, where they talk about John Chang's master. And John Chang told this to Costa that his master was in a village and they're separated by a stream, and the town, the villagers on the other side of the stream were kind of warring with his village. And John Chang's master went out to train, and when he came back, he found his village was destroyed, attacked, and there was only one person survived. And they explained to him that they was attacked, and John Chang's master single-handedly defeated the other side by attacking them and using his newly obtained qigong powers by like shooting beams at him, and the spears they threw at him would just bounce off, like John Chang shown with blocking the pellet. You could use the energy for defensive and offensive abilities.
Right, like, so then once again, like truth in fiction, like the Mortal Kombat's series sort of stuff, the Dragon Ball Z sort of stuff, like the different animes and Alchemist series and different
you ever notice the alchemy in Dragon Ball Z?
I need to actually watch Dragon Ball Z. I was deprived of cable or satellite as a child.
He starts out black and he goes through the blackening, and then he goes through the reddening, which is like the Kaioken technique. And then when he reaches the ultimate phase, it's yellow, and he goes yellow, and this bright yellow aura appears around him straight up as he gains power. It's the alchemical phases.
Wow. That's pretty epic, and I think that's actually also represented and done in the Last Airbender as well to some degrees.
It goes through the trials of all the different.
Sorry to interrupt. I just got an invitation to be with some of my favorite people, so I thought I'd join. How are you?
Yes. Feel free to restream to your channel if you would like the extra content. We were talking some electroculture as well as straight up alchemy, and Charlie giving us a lesson on his Eastern Oriental alchemy knowledge and experiences.
That's legit. I want to hear about it. What is this Eastern alchemy? What are you telling me about this, Charlie?
Yeah, heard about John Chang. He's a qigong master.
Oh, of course. Yes, the fire master, right?
Oh, yeah, we were just watching the video where he lit the newspaper on fire.
Yes,
yeah,
that's what we're looking at, of course, yes. God,
yeah.
I feel so bad for this guy because it's just the naivete. I've met a lot of people out there that think they live in the worst place and that everyone else out there are really nice, good people, and they don't realize like actually the rest of the world's out there trying to use their purity for material. It's really the most evil possible people by accident. They didn't mean to be bad people, but these like materialist reporters and stuff that he's talking to that totally betrayed him, betrayed his secret, betrayed his trust. And it's not that they were trying to do something evil, but they just inherently were. And that's exactly what they warned. John was warned by the monks,
Right. At the same time, though, it's the entire lesson of it and just this one full story of it. Like him going through, him experiencing the like his past master, him like coming forward with it, then his own visible change in like behaviors and all of it, and then also within his own community, you know, like he is the medicine man that they all go to, that he legitimately is like healing them, and like that, you know, like they hold him with high elevation, and he's doing great things for the people and the community, right? So
to
not
an
all
extent,
bad.
as long as he doesn't tell people about it. And I think that's really interesting for us, because our whole thing has been, hey, you know, knowledge is power. Give people the power by giving people the knowledge. If everyone knows about this stuff, then the world will be a better place. And it's weird
the
because
Masons
a
are
lot
evil
of
because they're secret. All the secret societies
that's
are
our
evil.
we're
But
supposed
for
to
whatever reason, these guys are awesome.
I mean, that's all I'm saying. It's a weird double standard. Okay, it does seem a little racist. We're like, well, you know, the white secret club is bad, but the Tibetan one's legit. Even though the Tibetan one wants you to suck on their tongue. I'm just saying.
But is he Tibetan, or has he been westernized and CIA planted? Like, Charlie, I would like your opinion on that matter of the recent Dalai Lama tongue kiss thing with the child. Was that innocent? Is that perverted? What, like, is he corrupted? What's going on? Have you heard of it?
Dalai Lama, yeah, he thinks of himself as a child himself, so he's probably just playing around. A lot of times he's seen at ceremonies doing some, you know, weird things, like just acting out.
Now that you say that, it's like that just is like a reality check to the West now, that we've been so hyper sexualized by the media, the freaking everything else going on, that we automatically have to associate sexuality with the act of just sticking your tongue out to a kid.
It doesn't have to be
like,
sexual to be weird that he wants him to suck on his tongue.
They might have, who knows? They might have not even touched, but it just like
I mean,
around with the kid.
But I agree though. Like, let's say in the Harry Potter movie, Dumbledore was like, "Suck on my tongue, Harry." You know, I think it would have had a different.
I'm not down
There's
with.
a difference between
I don't
sucking on a
co-sign
tongue
this.
and
The Dalai, I don't co-sign this. That dude's sick. Straight up, he knew what he was saying. He said, "Suck my tongue." He stuck his tongue
Did
out.
he say "suck
like,
my tongue"?
Being
Did he
weird
say it
and
in
playful
English?
is like, "Oh, got your nose." That's weird
Is it
and
a
playful.
deep fake? Could
Suck
it be
my
a deep
tongue?
fake?
That's
not a deep fake.
fucking gross.
Yeah, and you know, I don't want to go too deep down this rabbit hole, but you know, I recently rewatched the Nazi footage of Tibet. If you look in, because if you think about the 7 Years Tibet movie, first off,
Hold
7
on,
years.
hold on. Before you go on, we got to finish the video. Or do you want to go
I just want to
we
rabbit hole
restart?
really hard that the Dalai Lama was raised by Nazis and that the CIA did Freedom of Information Act payroll. Just blah blah blah. Remind. Go back. I'm done. Okay.
It's an interesting story. Yeah, the Dalai Lama. It's a very interesting backstory. But
don't get me wrong. That doesn't mean just because he's raised by a
public
Nazi.
scrutiny, nor accept any new students.
That's Jim McMillan. That's what I've been
He
talking
would
about.
sink from
It's a
sight
cultural
and
thing,
continue
nothing
his
sexual.
healing and obscurity as he had done since before we met him in the early 80s and had
Tibetan
always
kissing.
told us was right.
Tibetan kissing is better than French kissing, apparently. More American.
This was one of the early tests, passing a chopstick through a block, so students would learn to do this. If you pass the
This
chi
is
through
this is the Mo Pai style of qigong,
Pai
right?
Qigong, right? Yep.
Yeah, I mean, there is no way it would be almost impossible to convince me this isn't real. This is the one of the ones where I'm just, of course, how could it not be? The CIA and all of their practices trying to learn this stuff. There's no way it's not real.
Yeah, I visited another group that's independent of John Chang, and yeah, they do similar things. I witnessed a lot of this myself. The electric like chi, where you feel like you're getting shocked, like a TENS unit, but they don't have any device on them. And I inspected the table and the floor in the office, and they even stripped down to their underwear to prove to me that they had no device on them. And I witnessed them turning water sweet. So when the water looks plain, and when you shake it creates a foam, and then you taste it tastes sweet.
Wow.
And I witnessed the electric light movement of people. Yeah.
The foam is super interesting because then when you look at any mythology, it's from the foamy water that is where the life springs. Like when the dark water, light water, or the fire and ice, or whatever, it's always a foamy type water. Like in heathen, it's represented by milk of a dumbla. That's super interesting.
occult priestess says that the Theosophical Society are Luciferians. That one part I would be curious to hear more from you on that, because I've studied the Theosophical Society a lot. I have the Lucius Bailey books, and I'm not sure I'd call them Luciferians. I mean, just specifically, but I'm curious if you've got more of a reason for that beyond like the trees of light, trees of white magic and light or something. I'm not saying you're wrong, just interested.
Someone clipped a bunch of these together, but this is Jim McMillan again, doing the level. Once he got to a certain level, he was able to work with John Chang to John Chang would open the acupuncture points, and then he was able to move these, VHS cardboard containers that were just sitting there, and he was able to pull them down using his chi. And so John Chang picking him up.
This guy, right?
What was it?
Did you say you studied under this guy or met this guy, Charlie?
Jim McMillan. Yeah, I first communicated with him because after seeing this video from John Chang, I tried to reach out to everyone I could. Costa de Venus was one student that he's still alive. He wrote a bunch of books on it. And Jim McMillan I got in contact with to learn the methods. So I have some I could share with you guys from those methods.
Also, just occult priestess. I know about the magazine. Lucifer was the name of the magazine that the Theosophical Society produced from 1888 to 89 or something like that. But it's not necessarily the same. Well, they talk about Lucifer. I wouldn't say that they're Luciferians. I'd say that they studied Lucifer amongst other things. But not that that's. I mean, so also the Illuminati and the idea that Lucifer is light and God is darkness, right? So.
And the Lucifer satellites. So
I'm curious though how that relates to sweet and dark and sweet dark water.
Like both sides. Anytime you're picking a side of a polarity, you're not really picking the all both. Like, so I mean, that's if you're gonna say anything's God, it's got to be both sides, because a polarity is a split of a union. That's why it's polarized against itself. So I mean, anytime you're doing that, you're just picking a ball team. Is all you're doing. Like.
Right.
Yeah, someone mentioned in the comments 72 levels. Yeah, that's true. John Chang's master said, 72 levels of Mopai, but Jim McMillan said he only got to like level 2. It's very difficult. Anyone that gets above level 3 is very difficult. It makes the yin and yang chi. So that's killed a lot of students.
Solomon had 72 levels that he had control of, was supposedly Solomon's thing.
It's weird when you look at the light and darkness thing. For instance, you might read in the Bible, John 1:5, and then NIV or the King James are like, God is light and in him there's no darkness. But if you actually bothered to read the translation of what there's no mention of light or darkness in the actual passage. It's a message of God is holy, truthful, is perfect and righteous, and in him there is no sin, no wickedness, no imperfection. And it's using the allegory of light and dark. So today we believe that these words are interchangeable with these concepts. Brutal. I don't know if you saw Malcolm X, but brutal. Ooh, Dalai Lama teaches.
Like the one just now. Yeah. Was all new to me.
There's a little less. Come on.
It's like is it that means like when you go to the bathroom and you have to do the things a little bit, you have to push it really out. Yeah. That's how you have to do it. Yeah. So with all your strength and concentration.
Jim McMillan says the only way he was able to do this because John Chang created a yin field around him, so he was able to project the force out. He couldn't do it on his own. He tried being near John Chang.
I didn't do it slow.
Later, Jim McMillan wrote after this, he passed the test and he went to the bathroom. And when he was going to the bathroom, he was pushing and he knocked something over, because just that same action of forcing out energy is how they project the chi out.
Wow, it's just so, oh man, it's just epic. And there's also all the legends, but I've seen videos of in India as well as China, some of the masters around there, and the different monks masters, like the it's legit. I feel.
Check out Master John on YouTube. I can post a link.
Dude, just really quickly, the Dalai Lama touched Lady Gaga's leg. You know what that means. He likes dudes.
We also like went over the other days there's that there's like the other real who you believe is the real Dalai Lama or something. A different guy.
Not Han, yeah.
Okay, so that's why you believe this guy is just the CIA, which he's been in the West. Who knows?
Might explain a lot.
There's a whole bunch of things going around saying that the Dalai Lamas are trained by the Jesuits and all that. And at the end of the day, when you're a world stage actor like that, you don't get to that position. Like, you look at the ones that have been, at least in today's conventional sense, somewhat clean, like Bashar Assad, who they've tried to do a character assassination, tried to do all kinds of political assassinations and failed. And you never hear anything else about that guy. Now he's Gaddafi had a country that was so
they were all like secular and peaceful. They were some of the most peaceful, successful, prosperous in the regions.
Yeah, it was the most prosperous country and had the best standard of living in the world. We don't hear nothing about him, and until we hear the propaganda in order to let us go ahead and start our proxy war with him. But up until then, when his country is the most prosperous and has the highest standard of living, nobody talks about it.
Exactly, right? So he was taken to the West out of India and to America, was it for a bit? No, Europe, I believe, or something, right?
The thing is, when you look at the other
Gaddafi, the rebels, quote rebels, i.e. CIA agents, murdered him. They killed him in the street, even though his country was this amazing country. And you don't hear nothing about that dude, which is what I'm saying. So this person who's, I'm not saying that this guy was some angel or anything, but according to the information, he was bringing organic farming to Africa. He was starting a gold-backed system, which is what really got him killed, and had brought primary water to Africa and was going to free them.
Gaddafi was so cool. Michael Jackson started dressing like him. You remember that?
Right. Yep. And so this guy, and like, if you were going to be a farmer, they just gave you the farm and whatnot.
Not just that, he built giant fresh water, first desalinating plants, and then giant canals where he was going to create like these huge agricultural areas in Africa, turn the desert,
desertified Africa. Yeah.
Well, so the other thing, so we're thinking about llamas, though. Because the thing about Gaddafi was he built himself into a place where the military could use what he created. So they took it, and that's why.
My point was that Gaddafi was a good guy, and until the Bush family, him, you never heard of him.
But it depends on where you were. So in California, we love Gaddafi, we love Hugo Chavez, and it's weird because we talked about it a lot more. But the Bush family definitely moved in and took over what was Gaddafi, and with the Arab Emirates, right? Because of the Bin Laden family were associated. Actually, Obama's father was in OPEC and was blown up. That was how Obama's father supposedly died, right? So there's a lot to that story. But when I was looking into Nepal, it's interesting. Nepal, Tibet, some of these places where they have lots of llamas, that's where the CIA LSD experiments ran off to after the war. And you can equate this with Gaddafi because Timothy Leary, when they snuck him out, they flew him to Africa where they kept him safe. The CIA were watching him for the rest of his life. So these places are these weird black market CIA run mafia places, and they control these places are hyper religious. They have some sort of a boudarchy where they've got a kid that they take these orphans, they control them, and they build this civilization around it, and they're all reverent to the leaders of it. And it's crazy.
I've never heard that word before. What exactly is a boudarchy?
So again, with earlier when I was watching and I'll look for it just so I can show you Nazi footage, Tibet, the Tibetans really, let's see, like, how about just like 1930s footage of Tibet? Yeah. So the Tibetans were impressed by the Nazis. The Nazis came in and said, hey, we've got this leader. They're like, well, we have one too. That sounds really similar. Like a natural born leader. Oh yeah, we totally have one of those. And the idea that he'll be replaced with another natural born leader. Yeah. That's exactly what we do. And then they showed them Tibet, and then the Nazis projected footage of Berlin in the temple on the wall and showed them footage of Berlin. And so this is what it looks like where we're from. And like, oh yeah, this is exactly in line with the way things were in ancient Tibet. We have this technology, and so the trading and the agreement, people don't talk about this because they say, oh, well, the Nazis got to Tibet. They realized they weren't all German people. And that's not what it means. That's not what this idea of Aryan, which was noble in Sanskrit, the noble people that were associated with this technology. So, I mean, some of the stuff that Charlie's talking about, that's the last remnants of what this PRC haven't been able to suppress, but there was a lot more, clearly. And the Nazis were immediately into how they could use this for like flying saucers, levitation, the Bell technology. And it's supposed to be something that they kept control. But the idea of a boudarchy, I think the point of the question is just that you have a natural born leader, right? You have a natural born leader that is replaced with another natural born leader. You have a Führer. You have a ascended master, essentially, and they pick them. And it's not just one, right? Because you have different lamas. Here's the Lama Tamang, right? Which is one of the Nepali lamas. And then I showed you earlier Thich Nhat Hanh, who was the Vietnamese Lama, and he died in like a few years ago. But God, what an amazing human being, with certainly with magical powers, but more importantly, with the truth.
Once again, nobody's heard of him for the most part, but the Dalai Lama, everybody knows. See what I'm saying? That's what I was saying. You only get known and put on the TVs if you're dirt.
Yeah, I mean, the more you look at, everybody knows.
Right, exactly. Especially on the Western.
Everybody knows him. Is like, look at this picture, bro. Look at this, Balderson.
The real spiritual community leader would stay within that community, not flee to the CIA opposing side, right? Essentially, and that would be why.
Yeah, there he is cozying up with Bush. I seen one with him. I've seen a number of him cozying up with the different royals and just big smiles. And yeah, you don't do these things and not be one of them. This other guy that had actual powers that was actually spiritual. Yeah, look at this nonsense. This other guy who is obviously.
Yeah, that's like bowing down to that creep is.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. Go back into like the couple above that. Like there you go. Like does the one over like that kind of looks Schmiegel-y, does it not?
I don't know.
The llama queen is interesting because I also don't want to offend and criticize people's holy leader that are of that faith, and
or like the least thing I got a problem with is anybody's looks. You know what I mean? It's more about what they're like. People
freaking heathens, man.
Yeah.
You know what? I also criticize the head of Asatru. Like, I think he's horrible. So, I don't pick my leaders. I didn't pick my president. That guy's a complete dirtball. I wouldn't let that guy babysit my kids or feed my fucking cats. Like, he doesn't represent me. I didn't pick him.
Very true. Me too, with both agreeing on your situation as well as my Canadian situation and the ridiculousness that trust in judo is in Canada. It's bad, and
There's about 300 ethnic minorities in China. About 50 languages are left that exist. And when you start to look at all of the different kinds of people that China's claiming as their people, right, it gets pretty interesting. Like the Tamang people and some of these groups that have these llama cultures, because it goes back so far, and you have to wonder, is this something from Tartaria, or is this something that was installed in the reset which destroyed Tartaria? It seems kind of similar to a lot of the culture we have in the West too, like the Amans, but they're trained all their life, and there's only a number of them, and they do end up being as a child put in a lot of power, right? So it's a weird kind of rule to have someone who's picked from society who's going to be in charge in so many ways. You're like, you're going to be the giver. It's like The Giver, right? You remember that book?
It's kind of interesting because it's almost like the opposite. It's like the opposite of the theory that most people have with the royal elite families, where you're somehow able to control your reincarnation. So basically, every time they die, they come right back, and they're able to, reap the benefits of whatever,
the sovereign between you and God. Are you sacrificing your soul to their control? Are you slaving your soul to them, or do you use your free will to redeem your soul and keep it and rise above and be your own sovereign of creation and between you and your creator?
I mean, the Pope and a llama, this idea also that like you're God's incarnate medium on earth, right? That's kind of
all right, Charlie. We've been essentially bashing Eastern Oriental.
No, I brought it to the West too. It's
culture
not
for 15, 20 minutes. What's your
I don't think it's bad,
ideas on it? I know.
That's a unique situation. I haven't really done much research into it, actually. But yeah, it's still controversial. Today, you can't mention the Dalai Lama in China. It's blocked in their internet. But yeah, it's interesting, their culture. And yeah, a lot of he said now that if he were to die, he doesn't want to reincarnate as a Chinese person, but China wants obviously to have a Chinese person that's leading Tibet. So they're trying to select the next Dalai Lama to be Chinese, but he refused, even though he's so supposedly loving and accepting that. He said he's not going to reincarnate as Chinese.
How can you choose where you reincarnate, man? Like
apparently he can choose, but they need a council, and there's a bunch of methods that they use to select the next reincarnation of the Dalai Lama, and they find the child, and there's a method. Dr. Jeffrey Mishlove just recently explained one of the techniques. They found someone that was supposedly the reincarnation of someone that just passed away, and then they put the child near the corpse of the person that they were in the past life, and they put a blanket over them, and through some ritual they were able to restore the child's memory of that past life. But I don't know exact method. It's very secret.
There's so many stories of those.
You could look at that from another side and say that they've taken over this child, that suddenly this older, heavier. Yeah, that's.
You know what? Is it all right if I ask? Because I know a girl who lived in Nepal who knows some llamas and knows a kid who was selected to be a llama. Can we ask Anne? If she can? Okay, please. I'll see if she's around to ask about this, because it's interesting to me what it would be like to be selected to be a llama as a kid, because a lot of them come from families that kind of want you to be selected. So, I mean, it's not necessarily from the poorest family, and you can kind of hedge your bets like what is going to happen to become a llama. But it is kind of this weird caste that is, instead of having the nobility leading to who becomes in charge, you're selecting from the people, right? So like there's still princes and there's other things going on. But then this is somebody selected the people. So that doesn't seem necessarily bad to me either. It seems like an interesting way of keeping the people relevant. It's almost democratic in some ways, like representative democracy. I don't know. What do you think about it? Do you think it makes sense in nature?
I don't know if you haven't really seen it anywhere else. It's an interesting leadership technique. But there's methods that they have, like the personal possessions of the person that was reincarnated. They'll have one of their items and other items that didn't belong to them. Yeah, you've heard of the test. Yeah, and then the children are able to recognize what that was theirs in the past life, and that's how they help select their reincarnation. So I think a lot of the methods isn't really possession, but probably just a way of getting them to remember their past life, which would be a good method, I think, for all of us to learn. It would be nice to know. But some people have learned about their past lives, and it's caused them a lot of mental issues. So maybe it's not the best thing to do. You have to be ready. It's the right time.
There were some really young popes in history also. So like at some point, I think the youngest pope was, 12, Pope Benedict the Ninth or something like that. So there were child popes at some point. And it's kind of interesting that didn't last over here, because it seems like it's a better, like, I like Padme in Star Wars. I like the idea of the child monarch. I don't know. But I mean,
it can go good and it can go bad.
True. I mean, I think
really
a cult princess brought up the Krishnamurti, right? With the Blavatskys taking a child and tried to raise them. What do you think are the implications? Like, what happens to the child? Hey, by the way, this is Ann.
Welcome, Ann.
We were just really quickly gonna answer that question though. But what do you think are the implications of like the Stockholm syndrome, or what happens to a child who's raised to be a lama or raised like Krishnamurti, like to be like, hey, you're gonna be Jesus, kid. You're gonna be in charge of the world, and at least of this village or something like that.
Yeah, it's got to be difficult, but I don't know too many people explain the experience. Maybe there's some books on it, but I don't know.
Well, Anne, you were in Nepal. Good to have you, by the way. Thank you. We were just talking about llamas. Can you tell us a bit about the background of this situation where didn't you meet like a kid who's going to become a llama or something like that?
So who I met was the kid who was supposed to be the reincarnation of a very famous monk in Nepal. The famous monk was our guide's grandfather. So the guy that I met was supposed to be his grandfather's reincarnated soul.
Wow. And so what is that like to be? So I guess they all believe in reincarnation. Are you going around are they looking for the reincarnations of these monks like pretty commonly, not just the Pope, but